When we speak about sort of certified classics, obviously one of the things that comes with owning a classic car is looking after it and restoring it. And we get the odd sort of fantastic restoration story coming through our pages. We've got an absolutely fantastic one that sits on 4.5 this week, which is a Ford Fiesta XR2 that has been subjected to a £100,000 restoration. And this boggles the mind because you used to be able to pick up sort of slightly scruffy XR2s for a couple of grand a piece and have a really fun sort of 80s hatchback to chuck around. But £100,000, how have we ended up in this situation?
I think it's
I
the
mean, if you
fast
go
forward
off,
market, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say, go on, David.
it's the fast forward market, isn't it? It is yeah, we've seen cars like this, they generate a lot of nostalgia, and certainly cars like particularly we've seen it with Capris in the past. Obviously we've seen it with hot escorts as well, Lotus Cortinas, and the reason why they have the amount of interest they do is because the number of people who really get really lantern jawed and nostalgic about these cars. There are more of those enthusiasts out there than there are good survivors to satisfy that market, which is why prices have gone up, particularly over the last decade or so. And that's probably why this person has spent the price of an E-Type Jaguar restoring this hot hatch.
I mean, talking to Iconics about this story, they described it as undoubtedly one of the very best examples in existence. I mean, you kind of hope it would be for that sort of restoration cost, but I mean, we all know that when you work on a car, once you start to try and make something perfect, it's very hard to then put something on the car that's not perfect to match it. So I can kind of see how it's escalated to an extent, but 100K for an XR2, that's pretty mind-boggling.
I think that's it. If you want the absolute best, and it is, people will quite literally spend money, no object. And some of you who went to the NEC Classic Motor Show might have seen a Peugeot 205 GTI that was brought along by a restoration firm. And again, it was absolutely mind blowing how well it had been restored. And again, they were talking to me about how much it cost to restore, and again, it was a really big number. But people, if they really, really love those cars, and we have seen this before with sort of other cars. I remember we did a story in Classic Car Weekly a few years ago about a Triumph Herald that had been restored, and all the bills added up to £96,000. So again, it just shows it doesn't have to be a hot hatch or an E-Type Jaguar or a supercar to have that kind of money. If you really love that car and you want it to be the best in the world, for whatever reason, people will spend that money to make that happen.
It's one of those things as well, like Jesse. I mean, are you still keeping tabs on how much you've spent on the midget, or you just buried your head in the sand? So whatever it is, it is.
I do have a spreadsheet that keeps a track on exactly how much money I've poured into that car. In fact, I've got it open on a tab up here. I recently started setting up the same sort of spreadsheet for the Jimny as well. At the moment, from this point of buying the car, I've spent £3,788 on keeping it on the road and looking after it. So that's everything from sort of fuses to manuals to insurance to sort of the smallest of jobs to keep it on the road, right the way through to literally sort of, I think we're at £535 for getting the entire engine machined. So, and including 350 quid for the previous engine as well. So while I do have a track record for that money, again, it's something I try and avoid looking at too much because it is mildly terrifying. But it's one of those things, if I can understand how it builds up, I think it's one of those things of it's just astonishing that that's how far it can build up as well.
And it's interesting because that kind of tells an interesting story about if you're in a position to buy these cars, it makes a lot more sense to buy something that's already had the work done than it does to buy a really shabby example and try and do it up, because the cost, especially since the pandemic, the cost of getting specialist labor in, that sort of thing, to do these things is absolutely rocketed. So to actually have a car, it's like I remember with my MGB. I remember this was knocking on sort of about 8 or 9 years ago now. I got quoted by a specialist £19,000 to get it to restore to sort of tip-top MGB condition, and you could buy 3 or 4 really nice MGB GTs for that money. So that's why it makes sense, if you're looking to buy a car, unless you really really want to sort of spend every evening with the spanners out on your back in the garage, it makes a lot more sense actually to go and find one where someone's already done the hard work.
I think the market value is going to sort of keep a bit of a cap on it, because while people will spend that big money making the car absolutely perfect for their own enjoyment, there is a threshold to what the market will pay for that car. So from a buying perspective, this does present quite a bargain, really, because I think iconic auctioneers have said that they're sort of looking for 35 to 40,000 pounds, which is a huge saving over the work that's gone into the vehicle. So you could buy a very, very tidy Fiesta XR2 for, compared to its perceived value, not a lot.
I'll have to correct you there, Jesse. Actually, the estimate is 25 to 30k. To give you a bit of perspective on that, so the absolute record for a Fiesta XR2 is just over 25 grand, which was at Matheson's 2 years ago. But yeah, I mean, so if it went for that kind of money, that means it's still a quarter of what the car's restoration cost. But the thing I'd be interested to know from your point of view is, do we think it's going to go for more than that? Do you think it's going to go? Could it go for 30, 40, maybe even 50k? Who knows?
Well, to back up Jesse, I know he got his figures from reading the story, because it was Mr. Barnett, our auctions expert, who said he wouldn't be surprised if it was 35 to 40.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. Let's see what it goes for. The sky's the limit, really, isn't it? But whoever's selling it is going to take a bit of a bath on it, no doubt. But whoever gets it is going to get an absolute storming bargain.
Absolutely.
We certainly one to keep an eye out for, and obviously when we get is it selling at one of their major auctions, or is it just one of their online ones?
Yeah, it's selling at the so Iconic Auctioneers are selling this car at their Stywell Autodrome. It's a supercar fest sale, and 17th of May. There's lots of other interesting cars. It's a very good sale for sort of performance cars and modern classics in particular. And I know there's quite a lot of Ferraris in that sale too, because they have part of the sale in association with the Ferrari Owners Club. So it's a really interesting sale in terms of sort of gauging what's happening with the classic car market. But yeah, again, this we want to be keeping an eye on closely, because there's going to be a lot going on there.
I say importantly then, listeners and readers, I nearly combined that into listeners there, would be able to keep a track of what happens at this auction in the auctions pages of the upcoming issues of Classic Car Weekly. That's where I was aiming for with that one. They'll be able to see what happens.
The listeners will be able to find out what happens. Yeah.